Okay, welcome. If you have a couple of hard blocks, then you're welcome to bring those nearby. A bolster is an option later, but pillows would work too. And come to your hands and your knees. So we're going to use movement to deepen our breath. Start in a tabletop shape, your fingers spread wide. As you inhale, roll your pelvis forward, bring your chest forward, gaze forward. Exhale, round your back, bring your tailbone down, your chin into your chest. Inhale, passing through to cat lift, and exhale, scooping into cat tuck. A few more at your own pace. And one more. Breathe out, come back to a neutral spine. Move your knees wider, child's pose. Bring your big toes close. Take your hips back to your heels and walk your hands forward. Settle your chest down and your head towards the ground. If your forehead is floating, then stack your fists, one fist or two, and take your forehead onto that. Let's take a couple of slow, deep breaths down into your belly, then let your breath rise up towards your chest. And when you exhale, take your time to breathe out slowly. One more deep breath that sweeps up the front of your spine. And an exhale to relax you. Okay. Lift your head. Come back up to your hands and your knees. Downward facing dog. Move your hands a palm length ahead of your shoulders. Curl your toes, lift your knees, and try to bring your hips back and away from your hands. So you lengthen your spine as much as you can, and feel free to add some movement, walking each heel towards the ground nice and slow. All the while, keep your hands strong. Press your finger pads down firmly into the mat. And this will save your wrists without putting too much pressure into your wrist joint. Okay, and if you're moving, just slow down the movement so you come back towards symmetry. And as you press into your hands, take your shoulder blades down your back, let your neck be a little bit longer. And then when you breathe in, lift your heels up a bit higher. And when you breathe out, bend your knees, look forward, take a couple steps or a walk forward to a halfway lift. So as your feet arrive, place them hip width distance apart and then lengthen your spine. Your hands can be on blocks, maybe your hands are on shins. And draw your hips back and your chest forward. So your spine takes on a shape very much like downward facing dog. Keep your breath steady. We'll take a slow inhale and a long exhale. Okay, now bend your knees, settle your hips back and down low, and then lift your chest and bring your hands to your heart. So try to lengthen down through your tailbone and lift your lower belly up towards your spine. And just check that you feel you're over the arches of your feet so you're not gripping too much into your toes. And then lift up through the center of your chest, Utkatasana chair pose. And you're welcome to also stretch your arms out with your palms facing each other. And keep your neck in a neutral shape, your gaze in the same direction that your chest is facing. Push down through your feet. As you inhale, come up to stand, up to a full stretch. And then let your arms rest down by your sides. Mountain pose, Tadasana. Just like chair pose, bring yourself over the arches of your feet. Add an upward lift through the back of your spine and a downward settling through your shoulders and the tips of your fingers. And when you breathe in next time, stretch your arms up with your palms facing each other. Bend your knees, fold forward, and bring your hands to blocks or the ground. Step your right foot back, take a long stride, warrior one. Bring your right heel down to the mat, keep the bend in your left knee, and lift your upper body. So first, check your foundation, that your back foot is turned forward as much as you comfortably can. Lunge your left knee over your left heel. Turn your chest towards the front of your mat. And then your hands can come together at heart center, or if you feel comfortable raising your arms, you can. Your hands can be wide apart from each other or closer, and if you feel comfortable interlacing your fingers but keep your index finger free, then reach up through your index finger and hug your upper arm bones in towards the side of your head. Keep a steady breath. Let's take 3 more slow breaths. your hands onto your hips. Lean forward slowly. Bring your hands down to blocks or the ground. And then place your right knee underneath your right hip. Walk your hands back and then extend your left heel forward so your left leg straightens out. Actually, it doesn't need to be completely straight, just enough that you feel some tension in your hamstrings. Keep your right hand on the ground for a moment. Bring your left hand to your hip and roll your left hip back. And then bring both hands down. As you breathe in, lengthen forward through the center of your chest. And as you exhale, bow in. Okay, we'll take a few more breaths. So make sure that the tension is manageable. This pose is called half split pose, Ardha Hanumanasana, which actually means half Lord of the Monkeys pose, Hanuman. Push down through your left heel, lift your upper body. Place a bend back into your left knee. You may need to move your left heel a little closer to do that. And then walk your hands forward, tuck your right toes, lift your right knee. Now your right hand can stay on a block. If you're comfortable, bring it to the ground underneath your right shoulder, fingers spread wide, and try to settle your left hip down and roll your left hip back. Turn your chest towards the left into a twist, and your left hand can come up and stay at your hip, or you can stretch your fingertips up towards the ceiling. Or turn your left palm forward, extend your fingertips forward so your upper arm bone comes towards the side of your head. And as you press back through your right heel, lengthen forward through the top of your head. Take a couple more breaths. Look down, bring your left hand down too. We're going to come back to downward facing dog. So bring your left foot back, lift your hips up and back away from your hands. Spread your fingertips apart from each other. And take a moment to relax your neck, let your head be heavy so your spine has a bit more length. Still press down firmly through the pads of your fingers. You breathe in next time, come forward to plank. So shift your body forward until your shoulders are over your wrists. You may need to slide your feet back a little bit. And then your knees can stay off the mat or bring your knees down to the mat. Now hug your inner thighs towards each other. Lift up through your pelvic floor. Lift your lower belly towards your spine. And then try to move your shoulder blades down your back and keep your neck nice and long. So I'm assuming that you're still breathing, but if you are holding your breath, try to make breath happen. We're almost towards the end of the pose. One more slow breath in. And when you exhale, bend your elbows, move your chest forward and down, forward and down. Now untuck your toes. Move your hands back so your wrists are almost underneath your elbows. Straighten out your legs, press down through the tops of your feet, down through the front of your hips, and then lift your chest up so your shoulders come towards the height of your elbows. Lift your lower belly towards your spine. This is baby cobra pose. And if you feel comfortable lifting up a little bit higher, you can put some downward pressure through your hands to create a little more back bend. I'll add one more option. This will be moving to upward facing dog. So you are. Or push down firmly through your hands and float your hips up, lifting through the center of your chest and the top of your head. Okay. Now take one more breath in. When you breathe out, look down, curl your toes under, push into the ground and lift your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Now from down dog, slowly lift your left foot up. And then step your left foot forward up towards your left hand. Help your heel get underneath your knee. Push down firmly through your feet and then lift your upper body. A high lunge, bring your hands onto your hips. Keep your hands on your hips for a moment and roll your left hip back. Hug your right thigh bone forward so your hips are facing towards the front of the room. And then bring palms together to heart center. Try leaning forward. Straighten out your right leg. If you have plenty of weight in your right foot, make your stride length just a little bit shorter. We're going to step forward to warrior 3 pose. As you're ready, transfer your weight onto your left foot, lift your right foot up, and you may end up more upright, or hinge at your left hip crease to lower your torso and to raise your right leg. Try to keep your right toes turned towards the ground so your hips are at a fairly even height. And as you lift your right leg, lift up through your inner right thigh. Roll your shoulders away from your ears so your upper back is long and your neck has length too. Mountain pose. Lift your upper body, settle your right foot down to the ground, and as it lands, let your arms relax down by your sides, Tadasana. Okay. Moving to the other side. On your next inhale, sweep your arms up, put a bend in your knees, and fold forward, Uttanasana. Now on this side, we're going to take a couple extra breaths in Uttanasana. So as you're folded forward from your hips, your fingertips can be on the ground underneath your shoulders, but if you have blocks, it may feel better for you to make this more in a halfway lift shape. Bend your knees as much as you need to, so most of the fold comes from your hips as opposed to rounding your back. And if you fold it in quite far, and this can be with a good bend in your knees, and just allow your neck muscles to relax. With your hands pressed to the ground or your shins or blocks, lengthen the center of your chest forward. And then step your left foot back, a nice long stride for Warrior One. Bring your heel down to the mat. Lift your upper body. Okay, so first let's check in again with our foundation. Look back at your left foot and try to turn your foot forward as much as you reasonably can, that your left heel can still settle down to the mat, but you can lunge forward and bring your right knee over your heel. And then turn your chest towards the front of your mat. Bring your palms together to heart center. Here your hands can stay or raise your arms up. Again, your hands can be apart from each other, or if you're bringing your hands together, try to clasp your hands with the opposite thumb on top, and then your index fingers come up. Lengthen down through your tailbone. Lift up through your chest. And let's take 3 more breaths. To your hips, lean forward with care, bring your hands to blocks or the ground, and then place your left knee down underneath your hip. Move your hips back so there's less weight in your right foot, and move your right heel forward. So again, your leg can be working towards straight, but enough bend in your knee that there's no strain. Keep your left hand on the mat, bring your right hand to your right hip. Use your hand to roll your right hip back, and then place your right hand back down again. As you inhale, lengthen forward through the center of your chest. And as you exhale, fold towards your right leg, maintaining as much length in your spine as you can. Try to breathe deeply. Each time you breathe out, there's a chance that some of the tension can be eased, creating more length, more space. Exhale's complete. Lift your chest up and then bend your right knee. Maybe move your foot back a little bit. Take your right knee over your heel. Walk your hands forward. Tuck your left toes. Lift your left knee up. Your left hand can be on a block or place it down to the mat underneath your shoulders. Fingers spread wide. And try to settle your right hip down towards the height of your right knee. And then turn your chest towards the right. Your right hand can come up and stay at your right hip, or extend your fingertips towards the ceiling, or turn your right palm towards the front of the room or towards the front of your mat and extend your fingertips forward so your upper arm bone comes by your ear. And press back actively through your left heel. Draw your right hip back continually and lengthen forward through the crown of your head. Bring your right hand down. Step back to downward facing dog. Lengthen out your spine. Soften your neck muscles. Let your head be heavy. Press down through the pads of your fingers. Inhale to come forward to plank. Again, stop when your shoulders come over your wrists. Your knees can stay lifted or bring them down to the mat. Hug your inner thighs in, lift your pelvic floor up, draw your belly button towards your spine. And then move your chest forward and roll your shoulders back. So your upper back is in the pose to support you. With strong hands, still clawing the mat with your finger pads. When you breathe out next time, bend your elbows and bring your front body softly down to the mat. Then untuck your toes, straighten out your legs, look back at your hands, move your wrists about underneath your elbows, press down through the front of your pelvis, and then lift through the center of your chest. So you can bring your shoulders up towards the height of your elbows. Here you can stay. Or you can press a little more firmly through your hands, lift your chest higher. Try to maintain core support. So pelvic floor lifting, lower belly lifting, and your hips can stay on the mat, or again, the push-up of upward facing dog. So breathe in. And when you exhale, push into the ground to draw your hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Moving from down dog, lift your right leg. Step your right foot forward, up to your right hand. A high lunge, so push down firmly through your right foot, lift your upper body, bring your hands onto your hips. Okay, roll your right hip back, hug your left thigh bone forward, so your pelvis is turned forward, and then bring your palms together at heart center. Begin to lean forward, so this is going to turn on your back muscles, straighten out your back leg. And if you have quite a bit of weight in your back foot, take a slightly shorter stride. And then step forward onto your right foot alone, warrior three, lift off. Thanks, Chris. And you can stay more upright or tip at your right hip crease. The effort to raise your left leg, if you choose to, comes by lifting your left inner thigh. So keep your toes turned down. And your back muscles are working very much like cobra pose. So roll your shoulders back. Lengthen your chest forward. Push down through your right foot to lift your upper body. Mountain pose, Tadasana. Let your arms relax by your sides. Okay, let's finish it off with a clearing breath. Slow inhale and a long exhale. Okay, let's get closer to the mat. So with an inhale, float your arms up. Bend your knees, bow forward, Uttanasana. Just a moment to pause here as before. And I welcome you also, if you'd like to add a little swaying motion, you can take your hands to your elbows and rock your body side to side a few times. And this gives the back of our hips a little release from warrior three. Lets your back muscles soften too. Okay. And then bring your hands down, bend your knees enough that your hands can come down, and step back, downward facing dog. Now I'm going to guide into pigeon pose. If you know that pigeon pose doesn't work well in your body, come onto your back for figure four. For pigeon with your left leg first, bring your left knee forward up towards the back of your wrist. And while your shin bone is floating, move your left foot towards the right side of your mat, and then lay your shin bone down, bring your right knee down. If you have a block that can go underneath your left hip, it could be a bolt or two that you sit on. And if you have room to walk your right knee back a little bit, you're welcome to. If it feels a bit awkward, or if there's any sense of risk in your left knee, you can also take the block away and just simply sit on your left hip. With a bend in your right knee can be out to the side as much as it feels right, and then flex at your left heel. So this is called 90-90 pose. It's a pigeon variation. In any case, as you're ready, lean forward, aiming the center of your chest towards the front of your mat. And blocks can also go underneath your elbows or underneath your forehead to bring the ground up to you. Try to keep your left foot active. If your heel is quite close to your right hip, it could be flexing through the ball of your left foot. Or if your heel is further forward, then you could be flexing from your left ankle. Try to take your breath slowly. Each time you breathe out, soften. If you're in pigeon, soften your back, your spine down towards the mat. A couple more breaths. Upper body if you're coming out of pigeon pose. If you're in figure 4, then release, take any motion you wish on your back. If your left heel was forward, tuck it back towards your right hip, bring your palms down and move back to downward facing dog. We're going to come over to the other side. So if you're moving into pigeon pose, lift your right foot, bring your right knee forward towards the back of your right wrist. Bring your, while your shin bone is floating, turn your right heel towards the left. And then bring your left knee down. So if you have props handy, then you can put something underneath your right hip. You're basically trying to take the load out of your knee joint and bring it down to the earth through a block or direct connection with your mat. So again, an option can be to lean over to the right, bring your right hip down completely, and then move your right heel forward if there's room to. And your left knee can be bent towards the side or outstretched further behind you, just as it feels best. Lean forward as you're ready. Blocks can be wonderful ways to bring the firmness of the ground up to your body so there can be a sense of groundedness within. And that can help you breathe better with more steadiness. Time to breathe well. Each time you breathe out, a long journey. Under your shoulders. Bring your right heel towards your left hip. Press down through your palms, downward facing dog. And if you're on your back already, here we will meet you. If you're in downward facing dog, bring your knees down to the mat. Sweep your feet to one side, your hips to the other. And as you take your legs out ahead of you, come down onto your back. So as you meet your mat, let's take a few minutes in Shavasana. So stretch out your body, widen your heels, widen your hands away from your hips. If you have a bolster, that may feel good underneath your knees to give your back some space, some pliability as you breathe. Let's take one more deep breath to settle into Shavasana. So inhale slow. Exhale all the way. Let your body settle into stillness. Breath. your feet forward, reach your hands back. With the next slow inhale, stretch out as far as you can. And release it as you breathe out. Bend your knees, bring the soles of your feet to the mat. Keep your right arm extended overhead and roll over to your right side. Fetal pose. And then press your left palm down, lift your chest up, and come to a comfortable seat. Bring your palms together to heart center. Thank you for taking time to practice. Namaste.